WhatsApp has become, we don't pay for news in India. We hate it. We hate paying for news or real news.
Sure.
But WhatsApp is like it's like a sieve of fake news, of lies, of incitement.
The Teamwork Arts Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we try and go behind the thoughts that animate the actions of those who create the arts and the art of taking on the enemy. Some of us think that we are courageous. Some of us actually display actual courage. And then there are those of us who actually get awards that clearly say award for courage, which is what, so that there's no...
so there's no confusion.
There's no confusion at all that there is courage involved in it and the courage to take on a whole army of trolls for a while. Do the shoulders droop a little from time to time? Swati Chaturvedi, of course, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, their shoulders don't droop. They get paid so well that, we're all struggling to make a living. The trolls are the only employment created in New India is the trolls on the BJP's army.
It certainly does take courage to be a voice that is trying to talk maybe a version of sanity, because now I don't know what the whites and the blacks are, but
we're all high on hate.
It's actually like a bit of a drug, isn't it?
Of course, because see, you when you start doing it, I mean, I am really an old-fashioned journalist, so I don't want to be the story. But when you meet these trolls, which I did for my investigative book, you realize that all of them, started off as being supporters of Mr. Modi. They opposed things like what they thought was, the wrongness of the Mughal rule, the fact that there was reservation. There was one lady who actually, we sort of turned that troll, and she used to live in the United States. And she was very clear that, she wanted to come back to India, which was, growing, developing, that whole rah-rah nationalism. She didn't bargain for the fact that all of this was being done with a steady drip of hate. Because if you remember, in 2014, Mr. Modi kept talking about Achhe Din.
Of course.
Now, the troll army came, bigotry came, hate came, but Achhe Din still haven't come. But we've moved the goalpost now. Now we are, looking at the next 25 years as doing something.
Yes. It's about...
Amrit Kal. They say Amrit Kal.
The beauty of mirages is that as soon as you travel towards them, they move a little further away.
Correct.
And I think writing a book about it, I mean, that's an art in itself, isn't it? I mean, is it very difficult to be objective at times when you encounter such strong emotion?
Look, if you're an investigative journalist, which I have been for 25 years, I worked for the Indian Express Investigative Bureau, the Statesman Investigative Bureau. In Hindustan Times, I was probably the only person in that. So, I don't want to be the story. That's my basic thing. And there has to be something in it enough to, make it, because the only excuse for journalism is that it's in, absolute public interest. Now, even if one person in India, say even you, just one person, you're an Indian, you're a citizen, you're governed by the constitution. Why should any political party or, a government pay to have you attacked for your views? Because at least till now, our opinions, freedom of expression and opinion is sacrosanct in India. We're a democracy. And we take pride in calling ourselves the world's biggest democracy. And then to have citizens being attacked. Now, it's not about journalists. It's about anyone. Right. You express a contrary view on Twitter and they will swarm at you. So, the shutting down of debate, the shutting down of the Indian mind, the fact that you can be harassed, attacked, given death threats, given rape threats, anything for your views. Yeah. When you see somebody indulging in incitement. Now in India, the kind of communal temperature we have, one wrong tweet can actually result in riots on the ground.
Sure.
So that is something that I thought really was worth investigating.
Right.
And what I found truly shocking was that this was being done almost like in a call center of hate. And that unlike any other leader in the world, you had Donald Trump suspended from Twitter because of his problematic behavior and tweets. Mr. Modi is the only major leader in a democracy who actually follows these trolls. They all write things like blessed to be followed by PM Modi. And these are handles which give rape threats, death threats, indulge in incitement, spread fake news. In fact, one man, when Gauri Lankesh was shot dead, the journalist, one man actually tweeted, and he's followed by Mr. Modi, that a bitch has died and her puppies are crying. So, to have the Prime Minister of India display worse Twitter behavior than Donald Trump, I think, there is something rather significant here.
For sure. And I think, the unfortunate part is that information which is passive is now increasingly masquerading as knowledge, which needs to be an active pursuit. And the cherry picking of the information has also become a little de rigueur, hasn't it? I mean, it's okay to pass off information that you've got as knowledge. Do you think that hurts the ideas in and their germination, their proliferation, you think?
Oh, absolutely, because you see the amount of fake news there is. Now, if you start to say that, I'm going to be calling out fake news, the amount that is released, because, these are literally call centers and troll farms which are seeding hate by putting out, ridiculous fake news that, they would pick up a video from Bangladesh of cow slaughter and say that it happened somewhere in India. And, we saw in the Muzaffarnagar riots that social media virtually incited those riots. We had the country's home minister in the last UP elections, they're very topical because the results just came yesterday, actually tell his IT cell yodhas that, I don't care if it's true or it's false. I want it viral. This is on camera. And then he started talking about how they had put out a story that Akhilesh Yadav slapped his father. Now he says, we knew it was false, but it was viral within seconds. So, you're playing. WhatsApp has become, we don't pay for news in India. We hate it. We hate paying for news or real news. Sure. But WhatsApp is like it's like a sieve of fake news, of lies, of incitement.
As that quote goes, lies are around the block before truth has got a chance to put its boots on.
Boots on or even their pants on. Because
even now
they put on like khaki knickers because, this is all over the place. And one single video on WhatsApp, because the BJP also, by the way, is it's a very intelligent party because it anticipated the coming of social media. It anticipated how much social media would change the way we consume news and information. And they set up all these WhatsApp groups of thousands of people, which after a while, because there was so much outrage, WhatsApp has actually banned those large groups, but not the earlier ones created. Sure. And from all the dubious stuff, all the fake news, all the, I hate this one because of this, is actually now moved to WhatsApp. Because the fact that, Twitter, you might call it out. Some Sure. journalist might, some fact checker might.
Of course.
But WhatsApp, where is the editorial filter?
But, and that's the thing about journalism, no? At one point of time, it was supposed to inform and not opinionate.
Do we have journalists left in India?
Fortunately, yes. I can say at least there are some who are sort of flowing against the tide. How long? I have no idea. But
no, I call them Panna Pramukhs. The BJP is Panna Pramukhs because that's what they do.
Yeah. But ma'am, you think that academic rigor, I don't think is a factor anymore in journalism, is it?
Well, our news channels have become this entertainment hub. They are so much of a joke. I mean, you have something like CNN IBN, and I'm calling out the name because it is financed by the country's richest man, who actually did 4 shows on what they call Thuk Jihad. Now, I mean, as a journalist, I kind of cringe and I feel ashamed and embarrassed. I mean, when is something like Thuk Jihad become primetime news? Right. So, Thuk Jihad, the whole, something else jihad, putting some obscure man somewhere, issuing some stupid fatwa. That is what Sure. news is now, events.
Sure.
So, we don't have news anymore.
And since we're drowning in this miasma of hate, probably a good time to remind those who might be interested in knowing what classic, old school, fact-based journalism used to be like. And since we're living in, as you said, in a time of 280 characters and 30-second reels, what do you remember when you started journalism? There used to be points that were given to you, which were sort of the benchmarks for journalism. Do you want to tell us a little about that?
Absolutely. Facts were facts. Facts were sacred. Comment was free. In a sense, you could have an opinion, but right. as a reporter, and if you were a reporter, you were not expected to have, comment in your copy. You were just supposed to, old-fashioned, rigorous ground reporting. Why something happened? Where did it happen? And, basically that took out all the biases. If you're actually doing a field report, you weren't supposed to, say that, this candidate is completely, I think he's a loser, so he must be a loser. I see more and more of that. Nobody's interested in reporting anymore.
Right.
Also because reporting is expensive. To put reporters out in the field because India is a huge country.
Yeah.
To actually have comprehensive reporters, because we really do not like paying for news. So instead, what we get is these horrible Noora Kushti type studio debates where people compete to scream at one another. And and we have something like that, Mr. McAdams, which just happened.
Yes, and that famous missile, that little scale model of a missile being
correct. And journalists, anchors dress up as sometimes as spacemen wearing garbage bags, or they do they dress up as commandos. So this is this is not journalism, and it is very sad because we desperately need good journalism, because you have one political party which is completely hyper in power. It is across the board. And this is where why do you want to be a journalist? Because you can at least, if nothing else, examine what's going on and speak truth to power. At least that's the kind of journalism I used to do. But increasingly, we are not speaking truth to power. All we're doing is cheerleading power and saying, brilliant. It used to be the maxim that, comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. All of that is gone. I mean, you want journalists want to do as much drama as possible. They probably think it's a springboard to Big Boss.
But if someone were to want to adhere to the classical rules of journalism right now, considering that, as you said, there's so much fear, there's literally an army that is supposed to be against them and fight against them, what would your advice be?
Don't do it in India. You'll be unemployed, you'll be unemployable, you will be attacked, your self-esteem will be shattered, from your looks to your bank balance, everything will be up for grabs. If you're a woman, you'll get rape threats. If you're a man, they will call you corrupt and give you death threats. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Yesterday when the results came in, now Rajiv Sardesai is somebody who's been a journalist for 30 years. He's a veteran and he's a good journalist.
Sure.
You had and the BJP had won. I mean, they won 4 out of 5 states, which is amazing. It's an amazing performance. But yet, their IT cell chief savagely insulted Rajdeep on television, saying that he'll be very unhappy. My commiserations to him. Now, when you look at a journalist as somebody so partisan, what is lost is the fact that the journalist was originally supposed to be somebody who was completely unbiased.
For sure.
So, everybody has biases, but you were at least supposed to report or anchor without your biases being on display. And, then they will trend somebody's name on social media, they will call somebody a 2 BHK journalist. It's crazy.
Sure.
The way journalists are attacked, if you become a journalist, you haven't signed up for character assassination.
Sure.
So, and, when I was, before I wrote the book, I had tweets, every day, rape threats, people quoting my rate per night. So, it is horrendous when you wake up to that every morning. I mean, nobody signed up for that kind of abuse.
Absolutely. And yet you continue to do it.
It's an addiction. And also, I'm very, very stubborn. I mean, I'm very obstinate. If you tell me I can't do something, I will do it.
And that, I think, is what you need to remember. Sometimes words that we were told by teachers were not some things that you would celebrate, would probably be, because we are living in strange times, and strange times probably call for measures that need for us to dig in just a little bit. It's also important to be actively involved in knowing what you know and getting the other side of the story.
Absolutely. Oh, totally. This is something which is absolutely true. And whether it's the government or the opposition or, you're reporting, whatever you're reporting on, you have to, otherwise the story shouldn't go.
Absolutely.
One version cannot go. There's always another side, and that side has to be represented. Otherwise, it's really not journalism.
Absolutely. And that needs to be remembered. So, yeah, if you do want to become a part of what used to be called the fourth estate, there's someone who's part of it and flowing against the tide, so to speak, who's given you some things to at least think about. And probably thinking is a good first step. So that would be nice. It's been absolutely wonderful having you.
I loved it. But one thing I want to say, journalism is not propaganda. So what you said about the last thing that you said was so important, that there you have to get the other side.
Yes, absolutely.
It cannot be propaganda. If you don't, it's propaganda. It's not journalism.
And I think it's don't be afraid to ask questions and try and get the answers, because there are no wrong questions, probably just wrong answers sometimes.
But some people cannot be questioned. They don't hold press conferences for 8 years.
Yeah. We were told in school, I'm sure you remember, knowledge is power. How to acquire that is something that you might take away from this conversation, or maybe not. That's completely entirely up to you. But yeah, if you've got anything to say to us, Teamwork Arts Podcast is what we're called. We're on social media. Do follow us, leave a comment, anything at all that you want to do. Swati Chaturvedi, thank you very much for this.
I loved it. Thank you.
Remember to follow us. Remember to tell us what you think, because validation is extremely important to us. Thank you for listening. And what's going to happen next? For that, you'll just have to follow us, won't you? This is the Teamwork Arts Podcast. Thank you for listening.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, subscribe to our channel now. We have a new episode out every Friday.